Welcome to Open Day. My name is Gabrielle Wolfe. I'm the course director of the Bachelor of Laws at Deakin Law School, and I'm Associate Professor in the Law School. Before we start the presentation today, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which our university campuses are based, the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation, on whose country our Geelong campuses are located, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, on whose country our Burwood campus is located, and the Peek-Wurrung people of the Mara Nation, on whose country our Warrnambool campus is located. I'll just give you an overview of what we're going to talk about today. First, we're going to consider the question, why study law? I'll then give you an overview of our Bachelor of Laws course, an indication of the course structure, the requirements to enter the Bachelor of Laws and pathways to do so, the concept of double degrees, which is where you do a Bachelor of Laws together with another degree at the same time, our Deakin Accelerator program, which is for VCE students, the work integrated learning that Deakin Law School offers, outcomes for some of our Deakin Law School graduates, our Juris Doctor program, which is for postgraduate law students, the opportunities that Deakin provides to travel the world and study overseas, studying online at Deakin, the student services that Deakin offers, and how to apply to study law at Deakin. So let's begin with the question of why study law. Well, there are lots of reasons for this. Principal amongst them is that it gives you the opportunity to develop skills that you can use in a law degree, in a law career, but also in a whole range of other careers. So they're very transferable skills. Skills such as advocacy, reasoning, problem solving, critical thinking, analysis, and communication, which are extremely valuable whatever work path you take. With a law degree, you also have an opportunity to really make a difference. And there are many examples of this, but most recently we've seen Anjali Sharma and a number of, who she represented, a class action on a number of school students' behalf, which mounted an action in the Federal Court of Australia seeking an injunction to restrain the Minister for the Environment from approving a coal mine extension project. So this was an amazing impact where a law degree can help you work to achieve potentially objectives that you value in perhaps social justice or other areas. So why study law at Deakin? Well, Deakin Law School has a number of strengths. Amongst them is its focus on commercial law and public law. And Deakin Law School offers a range of elective units in those areas, including taxation law, international commercial law, intellectual property, cyber law, international law, migration and refugee law, environmental and climate law, and human rights law. Another strength of Deakin is that it offers really job-ready experience. So we pride ourselves on producing graduates who are ready to enter the job market as lawyers. We have a Deakin Law Clinic, which is a community legal centre, and we'll talk more about this in a moment, but students have an opportunity to work in this teaching law firm under the supervision of qualified legal practitioners on real-life cases. Deakin also offers opportunities to undertake legal internships, so the opportunity to work for a time in a workplace that does legal work outside Deakin. You also have the opportunity to undertake mooting, which is a simulated court proceeding, and learn advocacy skills. We also offer a range of units that are very much core skills-based units and help you develop your skills in legal research, statutory interpretation, client interviewing skills, alternative dispute resolution skills, and oral advocacy. The 2 degrees that Deakin Law School offers are accredited by the Victorian Legal Admissions Board. So that means that they satisfy the academic requirements for admission to legal practice in Australia. And they are the Bachelor of Laws, which can include a combined degree, so you can undertake, as I said before, a law degree together with another degree, and the Juris Doctor. And after you complete the LLB or JD, you need to complete also supervised legal training in the workplace for at least 12 months, or a practical legal training course that's conducted by a provider accredited by the Victorian Legal Admissions Board. So let's talk now about key features of the Bachelor of Laws, the LLB degree at Deakin. So if you took this degree just on its own and you did it on a full-time basis, it's a 4-year undergraduate degree. If you do it, you can also do it as a combined degree. So you spend 5 years as an undergraduate double degree and you obtain 2 degrees in less time. And we'll talk more in a moment about the areas that you can combine your law degree with, and there are a number of options. Another way in which you can accelerate your degree is by studying over trimester 3. So Deakin academic year has 3 trimesters, and the third is a summer trimester. So you have the opportunity of studying units in trimester 3 as well. You can study on campus or online. You also, as I said, have the opportunity to gain real-world experience because all students have to complete at least one experiential or practical elective unit. And I'll go into detail about that more in a moment. And as I mentioned, we also have a wide range of commercial and public law electives on offer. Now, this provides an overview of the structure of the Bachelor of Laws course if you were to do a straight law degree. And it's just a guide, but as you can see, there are 32 elective units, 32 credit points units altogether that make up the LLB degree. And of those 32 units, 18 are what we call core units. So they're compulsory law units, things like criminal law, torts law, contract law. You also have 14 elective units to undertake, and of those, 6 have to be law elective units, and one of those 6 has to be an experiential or practical unit. You also have to take a minimum of 4 non-law elective units. So as you can see, if you were going into trimester 1, those 2 units of MLL 110, Legal Research and Statutory Interpretation, and MLL 113, Legal Communication and Ethical Decision Making, are really foundational, fundamental law units where you'll learn some of the skills that you'll start to develop in your subsequent law units. So in trimester 1, if you were doing a full-time straight law degree, you would do those 2 units. You'd also do the first part of contract law, which is contract A, and you'd take a non-law elective. In your second trimester of the first year, you would take other core units of criminal law, misleading conduct, and economic torts, and the second part of contract law, contract B, and a non-law elective. And then it proceeds as you go along. You undertake your work integrated learning or practical or experiential unit, either in year 3 of a straight law degree or potentially year 4 as well. Now, the entry requirements for the Bachelor of Laws. So if you're entering the Bachelor of Laws straight from school, it's based on your performance in the VCE or its equivalent. There are English language requirements, and those are the ATARs for Burwood, the Burwood campus, the Waterfront campus, and for online if you choose to study as a cloud student. Now, those ATARs do differ from campus to campus based on the demand, and they will fluctuate from year to year. If you're seeking to enter the Bachelor of Laws not from school, there are a variety of ways to enter. You can complete relevant study at a bachelor level or above, which is equivalent to at least 4 Deakin University units, or at an accredited higher education institution with what we call a WAM, which is a weighted average mark of at least 60. Or you can complete a STAT test, which is an aptitude test that assesses a range of competencies that are considered important for university study. And you'll need to meet the minimum required special tertiary admissions test results of at least 60%. Now, those weighted average mark requirements might change based on campus. And students are recommended to provide a CV and a personal statement with their application. All applicants have to meet also minimum English language requirements. These are the entry requirements for international students. So there's the English language entry requirement, which is an IELTS test overall score of 7 with no band score less than 6.5 or equivalent. And the academic entry requirements are, if you're an international 2022 VCE student, you need to apply through VTAC, and you need to look at the VTAC website for those prerequisites and entry requirements. And all other international students have to have completed an Australian Year 12 or an equivalent and meet the admission score relevant to your qualification. And there's a website there from Deakin which has more information for international students. So there are, as I mentioned, a variety of pathways to enter a Bachelor of Laws degree. So the first major way is through applying to Deakin straight from school, but you need to get the ATARs that are required for prerequisites to enter. If you don't meet those ATARs, there are other ways to enter a Bachelor of Laws. For instance, you can, if you reach the ATAR to study the law degree at Waterfront, but you wanted to study at Burwood, you could enter the degree at Waterfront, and if you reached the required marks, you could potentially transfer over to the Burwood campus. You can also transfer from a related Deakin course, so you might start a Bachelor of Commerce, and if you reach the required weighted average mark, you could get admitted to the Bachelor of Laws potentially. You can also apply to Deakin through the workforce as well. And as I mentioned before, you could complete the Special Tertiary Admissions Test, the STEP test. Another option is to go to Deakin College, where you might undertake, for instance, a Diploma of Commerce, and you can then transfer potentially into a Bachelor of Laws degree. And if you have a look at that pathway finder tool, you can see the number of ways in which it's possible to enter a Bachelor of Laws degree. As I've mentioned a couple of times, you can combine a Bachelor of Laws with a range of other degrees and finish the whole thing, if you do it in full time, within 5 years. So you walk out with 2 degrees. So you can combine a Bachelor of Laws with a Bachelor of Arts, a Bachelor of Commerce, Bachelor of Criminology, Bachelor of Cybersecurity, a Bachelor of International Studies, a Bachelor of Property and Real Estate, or a Bachelor of Science. Now let's talk for a moment about the Deakin Accelerate program, which is a really exciting opportunity. It's a very distinctive VCE Extension Studies program, and it's designed to challenge high-achieving students by giving them university-level learning opportunities. So this program enables high-achieving Year 12 students to undertake 2 first-year university subjects at the same time as they're doing their Year 12 studies. And if you're choosing to do a couple of law units, the ones that you would do are those 2 that I mentioned that are really foundational for developing law skills, which are legal research and statutory interpretation, and legal communication and ethical decision making. Now, why would you choose to undertake the Deakin Accelerate program? Well, you have the opportunity to choose from various different study areas. It's a way of increasing your ATAR mark. You get the opportunity to experience what it's like to study at university, and you can study on campus or online. You'll also gain credit for these units that you study if you end up studying that course at university, and you can study for free and get a real-life university experience. It can also ease your transition into university for the following year, and it gives you an edge above other students. You can stand out from the crowd. And you can see there Jessica Toomey, who was a 2019 Deakin Accelerate student who's now studying at Deakin, really saw that she gained an advantage over her peers through the Accelerate program. And she's got a head start in her degree as well. So Another strength of Deakin that I talked about before is that it prides itself on preparing students who have they're job ready. They're ready to undertake jobs in the legal profession. And one way in which Deakin achieves this is by requiring students to complete one of the following work integrated learning or practical or experiential units. So the first one is legal professional practice, where a student can use their current workplace or find themselves another legal role to undertake what's essentially an internship, so a workplace experience doing legal work. A legal internship is also available where Deakin finds a law placement for students outside the university in an external organisation for 15 days. And this could be a community legal centre, a private law firm, or say a private company that does in-house legal work. Another opportunity is our Deakin Law Clinics, which I've mentioned, and they enable students to work on real legal matters undertaken by this community legal service under the supervision of qualified legal practitioners. You can also undertake mooting units where you develop advocacy skills, or our advanced legal practice unit, which really extends your skills and knowledge in those practical legal areas. So here are some examples of places where Deakin has arranged for students to undertake legal internships. So you can see we've got Barwon Community Legal Service, the Disability Discrimination Legal Service, other legal services such as Women's Legal Service, Family Law Legal Service, Mental Health Legal Centre, and Victoria Legal Aid, and private companies like Nissan Motors and Yarra Trams, as well as government positions such as Victoria Police, which are statutory authorities, and Headspace as well. Now, as I've mentioned, our Deakin Law Clinic is this community legal centre which offers free legal advice. It operates out of Deakin Downtown, which is in the Central Business District in Melbourne, and also in part from the Waterfront campus as well. And there are a number of clinics you can do. One is the Civil and Commercial Law Clinic. We also have a Criminal Law Clinic, an Employment Law Clinic, a Family Law Clinic, a Venture Law Clinic, which helps people who are wanting to set up startup businesses, entrepreneurial, and now recently we've added a Policy Law Clinic as well. So this is really a very exciting opportunity for you to gain real world life experience through this clinic. So, as I've mentioned, the skills that you develop in a law degree can help you obtain a role in legal practice, but also in a range of other areas and industries. So in terms of if you practice law, a law degree can enable you to practice as a solicitor in private practice, in a private law firm, in-house, so for an organisation like a statutory body or a company that requires legal advice, internal legal advice. You can also potentially work as a barrister, so doing court appearances. And there are a range of legal areas in which you can work. Here are just a few: criminal law, administrative law, human rights law, and refugee law, to name just a few. There's also been a growth in law jobs as a consequence of the pandemic in specific areas. So for instance, in corporate insolvency and restructuring, bankruptcy law, consumer law and contract law, and of course health law. As I mentioned, the skills that you gain in a law degree will also serve you well in a range of other areas and careers. So other areas in employment in which you can use your legal skills are business, industry, community organisations, and not-for-profit non-government organisations. So for instance, you could work in the corporate sector, in a banking organisation, in a corporate, in a startup company, as a policy advisor or strategist, in politics, industrial relations, in a government department, potentially in media and journalism. Your legal knowledge will be of assistance there. in the diplomatic service, in academia as a university lecturer, and in education for school students, as well as a legal studies teacher. So lots and lots of options for career development with a law degree. And here are just some examples of where our law graduates are now. So there's a range of private law firms like Clayton Utz. Students also ultimately work in government, in private organisations, commercial organisations, for the Fair Work Commission, and community legal centres. So a lot of really exciting job opportunities that are available potentially with a law degree. Here's just a guide to the salaries you would be likely to obtain with a law degree based on your level of work experience. This will obviously vary from employer to employer, but that's just a general guide to the salaries you might expect. Now, I'll talk briefly about our Juris Doctor program, the JD. This is designed for graduates who want to qualify for admission to legal practice. It's a 3-year postgraduate degree, so for postgraduate students. And the degree is completed mostly online over 3 trimesters a year. Those students do have access to in-person electives like the law clinics and legal internships. It's a master's level program, so all the students are postgraduate and many have working and professional experience. And there's a particular emphasis on policy issues in the discussion and assessment for many of the units in the JD. And students can choose from a range of electives, including international commercial law, health law, and cyber law. So the entry requirements for the JD differ from the LLB. You need either a bachelor degree in a different discipline with a minimum weighted average mark of 65%, or a bachelor degree in a different discipline with a weighted average mark of 60% and 2 years relevant work experience, or a master's degree in a different discipline. So a bachelor's degree in a different discipline has to be a non-law bachelor's degree that's not accredited or approved by the Victorian Legal Admissions Board as meeting the requirements for admission to the legal profession. Applicants with a law degree from an overseas jurisdiction, which is deemed to be at the same level of a 3-year bachelor's degree, will be eligible to apply. And a master's degree in a different discipline has to be a master's degree that's not accredited or approved by the Victorian Legal Admissions Board as meeting the requirements for admission to the legal profession. As I mentioned before, Deakin offers a range of opportunities to study abroad, which are very exciting. Within the law school, there are electives, including a Chinese commercial law study tour and an international alternative dispute resolution study tour to the United States. Also within the faculty itself, there are a range of opportunities to travel and study abroad. Here are some of the alumni so people who have done law degrees at Deakin who have gone on to have really exciting careers, really interesting careers. So we have Magistrate Kristen Rose, for instance, Simon Greenberg, who's a partner at Clifford Chance, Matthew Hocking, who's the Victorian Government Solicitor, Azmina Hussain, who's a principal lawyer at Maurice Blackburn and was awarded the Medal of the Order of Australia for services to the community and law. We also have a new law school building, which was completed in 2020, and it has really fantastic facilities, including that beautiful new moot court. So studying online is really a specialty of Deakin. Deakin's been doing online learning for 40 years, essentially, because it's been a distance university. And so Deakin was very prepared when the pandemic hit for studying online, and its technology is really excellent, and you can feel comfortable that you'll be supported in your online studies with amazing technology support, and also just teaching that has been developed specifically for online learning, and really expertise in that area. There's a range of financial assistance which can be available to support you at Deakin. And we've got that site there which indicates the scholarships that might be available, and there's also other financial assistance that you might be eligible for through government loan schemes. In terms of other support at Deakin, Deakin offers a range of excellent student services. So from our medical centre to disability support, counselling services, clubs and societies, peer-assisted study sessions, mentor programs as well, and a range of sporting activities too. Sorry, I'm having trouble moving to the next slide. Deakin Talent is a fantastic support that's available at Deakin, which gives students assistance with preparing themselves for the job market. So for jobs and internships, helps with developing resumes and job applications, has employer networking events and career success workshops. So a really fantastic support. So in terms of applications to study law at Deakin, if you're applying straight from school, applications for trimester 1 next year can be made through BTEC. And if you're not applying through school, trimester 2 and trimester 3 this year, applications are now open, and trimester 1 for next year, applications will open in August this year. Also, there's information here if you're joining us as an international student. We have international study experts available today who you can chat to through the web chat, and there are a range of information sessions to learn more about joining Deakin as an international student. So thank you very much for joining us today. We've got a live Q&A session up next to answer your questions. We've got a range of resources on our Open Day website. You can chat to our experts on web chat at any time. And please do join us on campus at our Open Day in August to really experience our facilities. Thanks very much and all the best with your journeys.
Hello and welcome to the Law Live Q&A session. My name's Gabrielle Wolfe. I'm the course director of the Bachelor of Laws. And today I'm joined by our presenters, Antje Kreutzmann-Gallasch, who is the Deputy Director of our Bachelor of Laws, Belinda Sapupo, who is the Coordinator of our Work Integrated Learning Program, and Nick Allen, who is a current student in our law course. If you'd like to ask a question, please type your question into the Q&A section in the question panel on this page, and we'll do our best to respond to all of your questions during this session. If you have any unanswered questions at the end of the session, we've got a team of experts who'll be available on web chat all day to assist with any questions, including any specific international student related admissions or fee queries. At the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you'll notice a yellow Chat Now icon. Please click on this after the session to be connected to our team. Now, to start us off, we have a question about, someone has asked, I've heard quite a bit about the practical side of law at Deakin. Can you tell us a bit more about this? So one of the particular strengths of our law course is that we have a practical component, an experiential component. Students who enrol in the Bachelor of Laws have to choose from one of several practical options, which are all really exciting. One of them is professional practice, legal professional practice, where students source their own placement in a legal role. So that could be a current workplace that they have. There's an option also to do a legal internship, which Belinda can talk about a bit more in a moment, where Deakin actually arranges internship for you at an external organisation to undertake legal work for 15 days. So it could be a community legal centre or an in-house legal role at a commercial firm. We also have Deakin Law Clinics. We have 6 clinics, which is a community law centre where you get to be supervised by experienced lawyers in working on real cases. We also have a mooting and advocacy unit, which is another experiential unit because that's about simulated court proceedings. And we have advanced legal practice, which is a unit to extend skills and knowledge that you've learnt about in your core units. Belinda, would you like to add to my explanation of the internship program?
I absolutely can. So I think you did a pretty good job explaining it anyway. But yes, we do have what's called the Legal Internship Program, where we mainly partner with community legal centres. We do have a few in-house organisations too, but we do have a range of partnerships with these community legal centres. So some examples of the ones we do work with quite closely are the Women's Legal Service. We also work with Victoria Legal Aid in Geelong, Victoria Legal Aid in Frankston, and we also have the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre, and many, many others. I think we have around 20 partnerships within the Legal Internship Program. And as you've said, students do have the opportunity to do around 100 hours or 15 days of placement with these organisations, and you do get to work on real client work. So it's not a simulated experience or anything like that. Students will actually work within the organisation for that 15 days or 100 hours.
Thank you, Belinda. And I can see another question that's related to that. How does work placement fit within a double degree if you're doing a combined law and degree with something else?
Yeah. So as you mentioned earlier, Gabrielle, the Bachelor of Laws actually does have a core component of a practical unit. So whether you're doing a single Bachelor of Laws or you're doing a double degree Bachelor of Laws, you will still need to meet that core requirement for a will experience. And then if you are taking a double degree and you're not taking majors or anything like that, you may have the opportunity to take other electives. And we recommend speaking with student advisors once you are enrolled and keen to start working some of these practical experiences into your course. Have a chat with them and they can help map out what it might look like and what other electives you might be able to undertake with a double degree.
Thank you, Belinda. Now we've got a question about what other pathways can a law degree take me down if I'm unsure whether I want to be a lawyer? Ansha, would you like to respond to that question?
Yes, of course. Very good question. So a law degree offers you or provides you with a lot of skills, transferable skills, and you will improve your reasoning skills, communication skills. And if you don't want to be, you don't have to become a lawyer. There are lots of other alternatives like become a policy or legal advisor. You can become work. I'm just in media, for example, journalism is another alternative, or in politics, work for, or maybe an in-house lawyer if you don't want to become a solicitor or barrister, work for a company. So there's a variety of areas that a law degree can actually lead you to, and you don't have to become a traditional lawyer in the sense if you don't want to.
Thank you. Yeah, look, I think today law is very much seen as a generalist degree, a kind of foundational degree that a lot of people do before they go on to have careers in a whole range of areas. So while you will, once you've graduated and you've undertaken the supervised legal practice that's required to be admitted, you can obviously work in a law, as in a law firm, in-house, you could go to the bar. There's lots of options in that respect, but also lots of other options are available in commercial, in the commercial world, as Ansha said, in journalism, in academia, in politics, in policy. So really a lot of options. We've got a question about, could you please tell me more about what is required to get into a law degree? So if you're coming from school, you need to meet the ATAR if you're going through that path. And we have the current ATARs are really a guide to what the ATARs will be next year. It's based on demand. If you have your heart set on, for instance, doing law at Burwood, but you don't get the ATAR for that, if there's a lower ATAR for the Geelong campus, you can actually go through, be admitted to Geelong, so enter the course through Geelong, and then if you get the required marks required, you can transfer over to Burwood. If you don't get the ATAR to get into our law course, there are a lot of other ways in which you can get in. So firstly, you could go to our Deakin College, which is, you can graduate, for instance, or enter a diploma of, say, commerce, and if you get the marks to the required standard, then you can apply for our LLB and transfer actually at the second year. There's also options for non-school leavers. If you start a course either at Deakin in not in law, in another course, or even at another university, and you complete 4 credit units to the required a measure, then you can actually transfer potentially into law. And there's also the option for a special tertiary admission test, which is another pathway. So lots of pathways to get in. Now we've got a question about, how does the university support networking for future clerkships, and what experiences have you had with them, if any? Belinda, would you like to respond to that question?
I can. So in terms of how we sort of work with clerkships, and again, I think I'll bring Nick into this at some point through his experience with the student societies, we do have conversations, I guess, with the organisations, but clerkships themselves are generally run very much by the organisations themselves, and they're run to a very strict timeline, which is provided to them by the LIV. So we don't have too much to do with clerkships themselves, but if students do get a clerkship for whatever organisation it might be, they can actually apply to have that experience is credited towards their degree under legal professional practice. So as you might be aware, the clerkships generally come out students are required to be on site during around November, December. So they would, those experiences will fall quite well within a trimester 3 enrolment under the legal professional practice experience. And again, giving students 1 credit point towards their degree for that experience as well.
Terrific. Thank you, Belinda. Now we've got a question that I'm going to bring Nick in a moment about, how does travelling and study take place in a law degree? Could you share more about study experiences available? So we have a range of options at Deakin. Firstly, we have faculty programs that you can study overseas through the faculty, and not necessarily study law units, but if you're doing a law double degree, you can study units from your other degree and get credited towards your course. We also have within the law school credit points for Deakin Law School study tours. We've run in the past a Chinese commercial law study tour, and also an international alternative dispute resolution study tour to the US. So we've got lots of those kind of experiences set up. So presumably with COVID retreating now, we'll be able to reinstate those programs. And Nick, would you like to talk about, I think you've been investigating potentially studying overseas as part of your degree?
Yeah, so there are a variety of options available through study abroad specifically for your law degree. I've had a friend of mine travel over to the US to study, I believe it was at the University of Michigan, to study criminal law over in the US. That was pre-pandemic though. But hopefully more and more of those experiences will be coming back to the university as everything begins to open up. But then also in terms of domestic travel, because I know a lot more people are kind of looking inwards as well, it's really easy to kind of pivot from being an on-campus student to being an online student at Deakin, where I know that I have taken trips up to northern New South Wales to go visit family, and all I've needed to do is bring my laptop along with me, watch the recorded lectures take place in some Zoom seminars if I'm wanting to do that, and then just do all my readings online as well. So that way I can stay up to date with my law degree, even if I'm not on campus at Burwood.
Thank you, Nick. That's actually ties in really well with our next question, actually. Look, one of the strengths of Deakin and its law degrees is its flexibility. And Deakin has enormous expertise in online learning, having done it for many years before the pandemic even hit. So we were very ready for the pandemic in that respect. And there are a lot of advantages for people who are studying online. But we've actually got a question about, if I'm studying online, will I still have access to all the same benefits and opportunities of the course? And the answer to that is absolutely. There is no disadvantage to studying online at all, and offline. So on campus, you get to attend classes and seminars. If you're online, then you attend them by usually we use Zoom, and you absolutely get the opportunity to talk to your teachers, to discuss things with your peers, to do assessments collaboratively, and get feedback on all of your work, regardless of whether you're online or in person. You also get access to all the teaching materials and learning activities in both methods. So we're very well set up to give students really the identical experience, whether you're online or on campus. Now, we've got a question about what are the differences between choosing to study the JD or the LLB. Perhaps, Antje, would you like to talk about the LLB and then I'll talk about the JD, or would you like me to compare? Maybe I'll just compare the two, and then Antje, if you want to add in something. So the LLB is for people who haven't studied a tertiary course yet, so it's for undergraduates, whereas the JD is for graduates, people who already have a bachelor's or a master's degree. The LLB is set at the undergraduate level, whereas the JD is a master's level program. The JD is almost wholly online, whereas the LLB, you can do it in that capacity, but you also have more campus opportunities. The JD, because it's set at that higher level, has a policy component as well. We do discuss policy issues in the LLB, but it's sort of a different means of assessment. Both of those degrees get you to the point where you have fulfilled the academic requirements to be admitted to be a lawyer, but you still have to do the practical components that are set by the Victorian Legal Admissions Board. So they're both terrific options. And I suppose the advantage of the JD is if you are already a graduate and you've had work experience, that might be more suited to you, whereas the LLB, you might be more interested as a school leaver. But that said, we have a lot of mature age students also wanting to do the LLB as well. Antje, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I just want to add that the JD is generally a 3-year program, whereas the LLB is a 4-year, or in case you want to do a combined LLB degree, then it's a 5-year program.
Thank you. That's exactly right. Now, we've got a question about the work commitment required for the Accelerate program and how does this help boost your ATAR? Now, the Accelerate program, just for people listening, is this fabulous opportunity for people who are Year 12 students who are currently enrolled in their VCE, and they're high-performing students who want an experience of university. So if you enroll in the Accelerate program, you do the equivalent of 2 credit university units. So those 2 units that you do at, if you were enrolled in the Bachelor of Laws, are 2 foundational law units that really give you a taste for the skills that you'll develop in the law degree and give you a head start for studying law. So you would actually get credited for, if you ended up studying law at Deakin, for those units. So you'd start already ahead and you'd really get that fabulous experience of what it's like to study at university, which is a major head start. And if you do well at that, that boosts your ATAR. And I think you actually, Antje, do you know if it boosts it in any other way, or is it just feeds into the ATAR?
I'm not sure whether it's only feeds into the ATAR, but I personally mentor one student who participated in the Accelerate program, and I think it also gives you a benefit when you then continue with your studies, because you've experienced university life already. So it makes settling into university also easier for the student.
Absolutely, that's right. Now, I just want to turn to Nick. Whether you could please share more about what the student experience is like studying law at Deakin.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of for your average unit, I would say for law, it's broadly split up into kind of 3 stages, where you'll have your class, where basically it'll be you and a variety of other students typically sitting into a bigger like lecture theatre. Usually is about 200 or 300 of you listening to the person taking the class speak. So you have that where you are learning the content. Then there's usually a reading component as well for any given week for that unit, where then you are kind of going through the content, usually through a textbook, or there might be online readings. And then there is a seminar, whereas a smaller, kind of more akin to what you'd be used to in a VCE classroom, with one person leading the seminar and one person and about 30 odd students engaging with the content and working collaboratively. So it's very much this process of learning the content, consolidating your notes, and then applying the content in a very practical sense. In terms of other things from the student experience, a lot of the assessment tasks required for law are very practical and very hands-on, be that if you're writing, say, a letter of advice to a client. I've done some assessment tasks recently where I was helping a woman who, it was a fake scenario where I was helping a woman who had been charged with armed robbery apply for bail. And, I've also helped, like a gentleman apply for his 2 divorces because he accidentally married the same woman twice. So you never really know what kind of things you're going to be getting in assignments, but they are that very real life practical element, which is a lot of fun. It keeps everything very engaging.
Terrific. Thank you, Nick. Now we've got a question about how much longer does a double degree take to complete? Could you please share some examples of what double degrees are available with law? Absolutely. So if you're doing a straight undergrad law degree, it's 4 years. So that's the Bachelor of Laws is 4 years. If you're doing a combined Bachelor of Laws with other degrees, it takes 5 years. And the options for our double degrees are you can do law with cybersecurity, science, property and real estate, criminology, international studies, commerce and art. So really a lot of opportunities to combine your degree. And the terrific thing is for 1 extra year, you come out with 2 degrees. And Nick, do you want to just quickly talk about, you're doing criminology as well, aren't you? Do you want to talk about how it works in terms of the units that you're taking together and how well they sit together?
Yeah, so I think doing a double degree, at least in my opinion, is a really good idea if you're wanting to study law, for a couple of reasons. The first is that it kind of allows you a broader breadth of things to study. And as Gabrielle mentioned before, you do come out with 2 degrees at the end of it at the kind of the low cost of only 1 extra year of studying. But I do think the other thing is that it's very important to kind of break up your study. So you're not studying 4 law units back to back, because they can be quite intensive, I suppose, for lack of a better term. They kind of, at least for me, studying a double of law and criminology, they do kind of flow really well into one another in terms of how some of the content of the more criminal law units will work. So for example, in my first year, I was studying criminal law as a first year law subject, but then also I was learning more about the theoretical perspectives of why do we consider someone to be a criminal in criminology. So they kind of flow well together. And because law is such a broad subject where you can cover all sorts of topics with electives or even your core units, it kind of pairs really well with any double degree, no matter what you're studying.
Terrific. Thank you, Nick. Now we've got a question about the Deakin Law Clinics. Someone said, I've read about the Deakin Law Clinics. How can students get involved with this and where are the clinics located? So we actually have 6 law clinics. 5 of them are located in the, 5 of them are located in the CBD. We now have a new one in Geelong as well. And we also have one online, which is our policy law clinic. So the clinics are civil and commercial law, criminal law, employment law, family law, venture law, which is helping startups, and policy law. So really a lot of options. And as I mentioned before, you can do one of those clinics as one of your units within your law degree. So you actually get credit for doing that unit, and you get to help real people, real clients in this, what is a community law centre. Now, we've also got a related question that I just saw about, I'm interested in becoming a law, but concerned about the difficulty of finding a job as a graduate and how competitive it is. Could you please share more about how Deakin is preparing students for the workforce? So this experiential unit that you're required to take is a practical unit. So that is fundamental to preparing students for becoming a lawyer. Also, in each of our units, regardless of what you're doing, you will be learning skills that are preparing you for being a lawyer. So the type of skills that we teach are communication skills, written and oral communication skills, critical thinking skills, the capacity to analyze and synthesize, answering problem questions. So as Nick explained, in pretty much every unit you do, whether you're obviously if you're doing the clinic, you're dealing with real people's legal problems, but in the other units, you will be presented with hypothetical factual scenarios where you need to identify the legal issues, apply the correct law, and give that hypothetical person advice. So that is a fundamental practical preparation for being a lawyer and for the workforce. Anja, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I just want to mention that, for example, in my unit, students have to write a memorandum of advice, and that's something that generally as a junior lawyer, you often have to do. So we really practice those skills. And when you start working in a law firm, you are already familiar and you don't have to be trained on those basics. And I think that's something how, in addition to the content, obviously, and to the practical units, how we prepare you for the workforce.
Thank you. Now we've got another question relating back to the double degree, and someone's asked, is the workload harder when studying a double degree? And the answer is no, in the sense that you're still doing the same number of units each trimester. So the maximum would be 4. And I wondered, actually, Nick, would you be able to share a bit more about your experience studying a double degree?
Yeah, in terms of whether or not it is harder, I suppose it is really up to, 1, what degree you're studying as a double, and 2, kind of what units you're taking on at the same time. So it might be that your double degree has a particularly intensive unit that's a part of the core units that you have to do, and it might be paired up with a particularly intensive law unit or a law unit that you might not be as familiar with. So there are all sorts of things that you can speak to course advisors about and sort of plan your course effectively around. Because when you do have that double degree, you kind of have a greater flexibility of what units are available to you. But in my own personal experience, I think that studying a double degree has actually made studying law easier, because it has given a study break almost. for me in terms of like studying the law units. So last year, for example, I only had one law unit in my first trimester, but then I was studying some third year core criminology units where we had to come up with like a research proposal, and that kind of took up the bulk of my time. So kind of being able to strike the balance between both of those degrees is a skill that you do get used to. But I think on the whole, it really depends on what you're studying and how you go about structuring your course.
Thank you for that. Now, another question we've got about the clinics is, can you do multiple clinics over the course of your degree? And I believe the answer is yes, because you actually have a number of electives you can do. So if you're doing a straight law degree, you've got 32 credit points, so 32 units you need to complete. 18 of those are core units, 14 are electives, and 6 of those must be a law elective. So you can actually do that. If you're doing a combined degree, the ratio is that you're doing 40 units altogether, 24 of them are law units, including 6 electives as well. So Ansha, did you want to talk about that? Is that right, that you can do multiple clinics? Do lots of students pick that option?
I think so. I think that's right. I've met a couple of students who actually enjoyed the experience in the law clinic so much that they applied for a second term in a different area of the law, because it was such an rewarding experience. And yes, I believe you can do more.
We've got a question about what's the maximum time allowed to complete the JD, and is there a limited time to qualify for distinctions or honours? I must say I don't understand the second question, so if that person who asked that question could clarify that. The maximum time, I think it's 8 years. Is that right, Ansha? I believe but it's set up as a lot of students who do the JD do it part-time. So it is a substantial time that you will have. We've got a question from Belinda. What other practical opportunities for work placement or internships are available when studying law at Deakin? And I will actually turn to our Belinda to answer that question.
Yeah, so covered off obviously the clinics as well. So that's one of the options that we give students to get some practical experience. The other option is through the self-sourced option. So getting either, as you said, doing it through a current organisation, someone you're already working with, or finding another opportunity with an organisation that you're passionate about, or an industry that you're passionate about. Other options are we do have organisations that come to us looking for students to help in a certain area, I guess similar to clerkships, you might call them, but they're sort of all year round. So some of those organisations we've worked with have been Geelong Port, Vic Water, the Australian Battery Recycling Initiative, which is for a policy student, which has been really interesting for some of the students who have done that. Other experiences are the moots and the clinics. We also have lots of international experiences too. So students can do study tours overseas, or they can choose to do a study abroad. So taking a semester and going to another university and studying there. So there's lots of ways to get some practical experience. And we also have a team called Deakin Talent, which also helps students with career building and coaching. So they help you in terms of understanding how to build your resume and what sort of experiences you need to build a resume, but also helping you understand, what it is you actually want to do once you do graduate. So we do have career coaches that specialize within the law industry who can help you and give you some tailored advice in terms of what to do to get to your dream job at the end of it.
Thank you very much. Now, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. Thank you all for joining us. It's been really great to see so many of you interested in law and to receive so many terrific questions. Now, although we have to leave, our live Q&A team who are providing written responses to your questions will continue responding to your queries until 12:45 p.m. And also, if we've not yet responded to your questions, you can still join our all-day web chat, which is, as I mentioned, at the bottom right of your screen, where expert staff they're ready to answer your questions. And if you'd like to learn more, you can also find lots of really useful resources on the Deakin Open Day website that we encourage you to explore. So thanks for your time, and we really hope to see you at Deakin soon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.